I want to start today with a number that, honestly, it just doesn't make sense on paper.
Okay.
$500 million. dollars.
Wow.
That's the new funding for a company called 11 Labs as of, this month, February 2026. And that pushes their valuation to $11 billion.
11 billion
Yeah.
for a voice company.
Exactly. I mean, usually you see those numbers for like chip makers or cloud infrastructure, the real heavy lifting.
Right. And that's the massive disconnect everyone's trying to wrap their heads around. Why is a startup that, essentially makes computers talk worth more than some airlines?
Well, that is the question we're digging into today, because if you look at the sources we've pulled for this deep dive, and we're looking at coverage from the Web Summit in Doha, a really sharp piece by Johan Steyn called The End of Typing, the answer isn't just that the voice sounds a bit better.
No, not at all. The answer is that the keyboard is dying.
It's a huge claim.
It is, but the whole thesis from 11 Labs CEO Matti Stanijevski
Yeah.
is that we're in the middle of this fundamental interface shift. He painted this picture of a future where your phone just stays in your pocket.
Right. You're not hunched over a screen.
So you're looking at the world, and your voice becomes the command line for reality.
It sounds incredible, almost like science fiction. But let's be real for a second. We've kind of heard this before, haven't we?
Oh, absolutely.
Siri's been on my phone for over a decade. Alexa's in, every other kitchen. And 99% of the time, they're just fancy egg timers. So why is this different?
It really comes down to two words: reasoning and memory.
Okay.
The old stuff, the Siri, early Alexa, it was all command and control. You said a very specific phrase, and it triggered a very specific script. It was just mimicry.
So it's just matching keywords.
Precisely. A very rigid if this, then that system. The shift Stanishevsky's talking about is pairing these amazing voice models with the reasoning engine of an LLM, a large language model.
So there's a brain behind the voice now.
There's a brain. And this is what Seth Pierpont from Iconic Capital calls the agentic shift.
That word agentic, it's popping up everywhere. Can we just define that really clearly? Because you know how tech buzzwords can get.
For sure. Think of it this way. A non-agentic tool is like a hammer. It just sits there. It does exactly what you force it to do moment by moment.
It waits for instructions.
It waits for your hand. An agentic tool is more like a general contractor. You don't tell a contractor, okay, now pick up the hammer, aim for the nail, swing.
Right. You just say, build me a deck.
Exactly. Build me a deck. The AI has enough context and memory to figure out all the little steps to get to that big goal without you micromanaging.
Okay, that makes sense. So old Siri was the hammer. You had to say, open Spotify, now search for the Beatles, now play Here Comes the Sun, step by step by step.
Yes, and the new agentic version is just play some music that'll help me focus. And it knows what you like, it knows it's a work day, it remembers you skipped that other playlist yesterday, and it just handles it.
It changes the whole interaction from operating a device to delegating.
That's the word, delegation.
Yeah.
And that's where the $11 billion valuation comes from. Because if you can truly delegate complex tasks with your voice, you don't need the screen as much.
And all the big players see this coming.
Oh, absolutely. This isn't just 11 Labs. The sources show OpenAI, Google, they're all pivoting to voice. Apple's been quietly buying up companies like Q.AI to build this always-on tech. The writing is on the wall.
Which brings us to that article by Johan Steyn.
Right.
He frames this whole thing not just as a tech upgrade, but as a shift in the operating layer.
Yeah, and I love his distinction between software as a menu versus software as a doer.
Explain that.
Well, right now, almost everything you use is a menu, right? You open an app, you hunt for the drop-down, you click the buttons, you're doing all the manual work of navigating. Steyn argues that voice just turns all that software into a doer. You don't navigate anymore, you just instruct.
But is that always better? I mean, sometimes I want to see the menu. Seeing the list of options helps me figure out what I actually want to do.
That's a fair point, and visual interfaces won't disappear completely, but think about the friction. Steyn's big point is that typing is cognitively expensive. It takes focus and your hands and your eyes.
Speaking is just instinct.
It's instinct, and when you drop that friction, the frequency of interaction just explodes. He calls it an era of micro moments.
What does he mean by that?
He means all those little fleeting thoughts you have. You're walking to your car and you think, oh, I need to email Sarah about that invoice.
Right, and you think, I'll do that when I get back to my desk, and then you completely forget, that's my whole day.
That's everyone's day. With a seamless voice interface, that friction is just gone. You just say the thought out loud and the agentic AI captures it, structures it, and puts it in the draft folder. It's done.
Steyn even said it feels less like using a tool and more like delegating to a team member.
Exactly. It's thinking out loud, becoming operational.
Okay, that sounds amazing for getting things done, but it also creates a practical problem. I'm not going to be walking down the street shouting, draft an email to Bob about his overdue invoice.
No, of course not. That's socially awkward.
And I don't want everyone on the train to know my business.
And that's precisely why the hardware has to change, too. Stanisevsky's vision of phones in pockets only works with the rise of wearables.
Things like smart glasses or really advanced earbuds.
Exactly. The sources mentioned 11 Labs is partnering with Meta, which points to things like Ray-Ban smart glasses. The goal is this hybrid model where some processing is on the device, some is in the cloud, so your assistant becomes a constant companion.
Constant companion. I mean, that sounds helpful, but that phrase also sets off a few alarm bells for me.
It should.
Because if this thing is always with me, always listening, we have to talk about the risks. Constant companion sounds an awful lot like constant surveillance.
We absolutely do. And Stan's article pivots hard on this. He talks about something he calls the rational skepticism problem.
Okay, break that down for me.
He writes, and this is a direct quote, "Words on a screen are easy to doubt. A familiar voice is not."
Wow, that's really profound. When I get a spam email, my guard is up immediately. I'm looking for bad grammar, weird links. I'm detached.
You're in your analytical brain.
Mm-hmm.
But voice completely bypasses that rational filter. It hits us on an emotional, evolutionary level. We are literally hardwired to trust a human voice.
Which creates a huge vulnerability for fraud, the rational bypass.
The ultimate rational bypass. He specifically mentioned South Africa, which already has high rates of social engineering fraud people calling and tricking you.
And now you add a perfect AI voice clone to that.
It's like pouring gasoline on a fire. Imagine getting a call from your spouse or your boss, and their voice sounds genuinely distressed, asking for an urgent money transfer.
And it's not a robot. It has the little size, the pauses, the right cadence. It has all the micro behaviors of a real person.
Exactly. We're heading into a world where your own ears can't be trusted as a verification tool anymore. Hearing your mother's voice on the phone is no longer proof that it's your mother.
That is a terrifying thought. So on one side, you have this multi-billion-dollar productivity engine. On the other, the perfect tool for scammers. And we haven't even really touched on the privacy angle. Always on means always recording.
It does. TechCrunch flagged this as a potential privacy nightmare. If the operating layer of your life is constantly listening for a command word, you've just built the most perfect surveillance device ever conceived.
We've already seen companies like Google get in trouble for how they've handled voice data in the past.
And now you multiply that by a factor of, well, by 247. It's not just your search queries, it's your arguments, your private conversations, the tone of your voice when you say something. It is biographical data on a scale we have never seen.
Okay, so given the investment, given the sheer utility of it all, it feels inevitable. So if we're going to use this, and we probably are, what's the new skill set we need? If we're not typing, what are we doing?
Steyn argues that the primary human skill shifts from creation to judgment.
Judgment.
Think about it. If the AI is the doer, your job becomes being the manager. You don't get paid to type the email anymore. You get paid to judge whether the email the AI wrote is accurate, strategic, and safe to send.
So his line, governance is the building, that's what he means.
That's exactly it. We need to build new, safe digital habits. If a voice command can trigger a bank transfer, voice can't be the only factor of authentication. You need something else.
A physical tap, a fingerprint, multi-factor authentication for your own voice.
You have to treat your own voice commands with a healthy dose of suspicion. And crucially, we have to teach our kids to do the same.
Right. Stan makes a really important point about education. If the next generation grows up where the default is just ask and receive.
They stop searching. They stop wrestling with information. They just get the perfectly synthesized answer spoon-fed to them.
It's the voice of God problem. If the computer speaks it with authority, it must be true.
Yes. So the job of a parent or a teacher completely changes. It becomes about teaching verification. Okay, that's what the AI said. How does it know that? Can you find another source that confirms it?
It's a massive trade-off. We gain incredible speed and inclusion because this is amazing for people who struggle with literacy or typing, but we might lose that layer of critical thought that writing forces on you.
That is the central tension of this entire shift. Steyn leaves us with this idea that I've been thinking about all week. He says the next interface won't just be heard.
It will be believed.
It will be believed. And that leads to a huge question. Writing forces us to structure our thoughts, right? To organize and edit. If we just speak our raw intent and let an AI handle the structure, do we actually lose the ability to structure our own thoughts over time?
Or do we free up our brains from the administrative work and allow them to focus purely on strategy?
That's the $11 billion gamble.
I guess we're all about to find out.
We are.
Here's a little challenge for you listening. The next time you have to write a complex email, not just a quick reply, but something with real substance, try dictating the whole thing first. Don't touch the keyboard.
It's a fascinating experiment.
See if it feels like freedom, or if you feel like you've lost control of the nuance.
Yeah.
That's all for this deep dive into the end of typing. Thanks for joining us.